Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Before we begin our discussion, let's have first a short mind-blooming game. Are you ready? Yes. The title of our game is Let Your Mind Bloom. All you have to do is identify which verb does not belong to the choices. Familiar naman kayo sa Bloom's taxonomy, ano? Yes. And tsaka yung mga verb na kaakibat ng levels sa Bloom's taxonomy. Okay. For example, ito, sa remembering. When memory is used to produce definitions, facts, or list, or recite, or retrieve material. Ano ang hindi bilang na verb dito? Produce. Bakit? Dahil itong produce ay nasa higher order thinking skills sa creative. Ready na? Yes. Number 1, remembering. When memory is used to produce definition, facts, or list, or recite, or retrieve material. Who wants to answer? Miss Panigan? Ano ay hypothesizing? Let's see if your answer is correct. Hypothesizing is correct.
Yes.
Yung sabi kayo lang yan sa labas.
Tinabang.
Next. Applying. Who wants to answer? Miss Rial.
Recollecting.
Recollecting. Tignan natin kung tama. Recollecting is correct. Next one, evaluating, making judgment based on criteria and standards through checking and critiquing. What do you think is the answer? Yes, Miss Akasho? Predicting. Predicting? Let's see if your answer is correct. Predicting is the correct answer. Last. Creating. Putting elements together to form a functional whole and reorganizing elements into a new pattern or structure by planning or producing. What do you think is the answer? Miss Ganibo. Describing. Describing. Describing is correct. Okay, great job everyone. Before we proceed with our discussion proper, let me first introduce myself. I am Jastine Kaye Maala. 20 years old. Still young but not fresh. From Sihi, Banabista, Marinduque. And if you want to contact me, here's my email and my contact number. And my motto in life is patience is a virtue. Bakit? Kasi itong phrase na ito, it allows me to remain calm sa lahat ng sitwasyon. And or kapag may mga gusto akong matupad sa sarili ko, and it also a reminder for me na good things come to those who can endure and remain composed sa pagharap ng mga challenges na ito.
So, good morning everyone. So, partner kami dito sa report na ito and gusto ko lang magpakilala. Gusto ko lang magpakilala sa akin. So, ako ay Cristel Solas. I live on Torrijos, Marinduque. This is my email address and my contact number. So, my motto in life is try and fail but never fail to try, from Jared Leto. So, this motto, ito yung nagpasabog sa buhay ko.
Yes.
Dito parang, through this motto ay parang nagkaroon ako ng mas confidence para i-try yung mga bagay na gusto ko namang i-share sa inyo na kapag may mga bagong activities or things na alam nyo na makakatulong sa inyo, i-try nyo kasi wala namang mawawala kapag tinry nyo. And kayo ng mga bagong bagay is, malay nyo, magkaroon kayo ng mga bagong opportunity sa life, at saka, syempre, makawala kayo sa comfort zone nyo sa buhay. So, yun po. Let us proceed to the discussion.
So let us proceed. Our discussion for today is lesson 4.2, implementing the curriculum daily in the classroom. And the desired learning outcomes of our lesson. First is to review the components of a daily plan for teaching. Next, identify intended learning outcomes. And lastly, matching learning outcomes with the appropriate teaching methods. A teaching activity is like implementing a minuscule curriculum, a daily lesson plan na binabase sa written na curriculum na ini-implement naman ng ating mga teacher. And pagkatapos nilang i-implement yun, i-assess nila or i-evaluate nila yung mga tinuro nila kung na-achieve ba yung intended learning outcomes. And we will see how this process is shown. Pero bago yan, gusto niyo ba ng good news?
Yes!
At ang good news ay, ayon sa DepEd Order number 70 series of 2012, ang lahat ng teacher, public elementary and secondary schools ay hindi na required na gumawa ng detailed lesson plans. And they may adopt daily lesson plan logs which contain the needed information and guide from the teacher guide and teacher manual. Siyempre, hindi porket sinabi dito na hindi na kailangan ng detailed lesson plan is wala nang guide yung teacher sa pagtuturo. However, ito ay applicable lamang sa mga teacher na may experience na 2 years and above. And yung mga wala pang yung mga bago pa lang na mga guro na wala pa halos experience ay kailangan nilang gumawa ng or nire-require sila na gumawa ng detailed lesson plans. And lesson plans shall include the following. First, the objectives. Next, the subject matter. Third, procedures. Fourth, assessment. And the last one is the assignment. So as a prospective teacher, you should prepare a lesson plan that will comply with all the necessary components asked by the Department of Education. And yun namang nade-deploy sa mga private schools ay may iba silang format ng lesson plan since hindi siya under ng government. Pero yung content naman niya is dapat ay naka-align din. Bago magsimula ang klase, a teacher must have written lesson plan. At the main parts ng lesson plan ng teacher ay ang objectives, subject matter, procedures, o yung mga strategies, the assessment or the assignment, yung kanina. First, isa-isahin natin. First is the intended learning outcomes. Ang intended learning outcomes ay, sa madaling sabi, ito yung focus ng ating lesson. At ito ay binabase based sa taxonomy of objectives presented to us as, ano nga yung tatlong domain?
Cognitive, affective, and motor.
Domain. And Bloom's taxonomy has been revisited by his own student, si Lauren Anderson at si David Bravo. Tignan natin yung comparison ng dalawa. Ito yung kay Bloom, yung original, at saka ito yung dun sa kanyang students nung na-revise na nila. Ano mapapansin ninyo? Anyone? May napapansin ba kayo? Ano? Dito sa kay Bloom, ang pinakamataas niya ay nakalagay sa highest order thinking skills niya meaning. Then, dito is wait lang. Tinanggalin ko.
Yung araw na
Yan.
lang.
Dito sa kay Blooms is yung mga words niya is nouns. Then dito naman ay ano? Verbs. Dahil ito ay ing. Ends with ing.
Gerund.
Gerunds. Yan. Wait lang, tinanggalin ko.
Nalog yun.
Okay.
Yung
Isa-isahin natin yung levels ng taxonomy dun sa ni-revise na estudyante ni Bloom. Pinakamababa or una dun sa list nila ay ang remembering. Remembering? Sino wants to read? Miss Mucha. Kindly read.
Remembering, recall or retrieve previous learned information.
At ang mga keywords na kaakibat ng remembering ay
Define, describe, identify, label, list, outline, select, and state.
states. Ayan. The next one is understanding. Yes, Miss Roxanne.
Understanding, comprehend meaning, translation, state problem in own words, making meaning. Comprehends, explain, distinguishes, estimates, gives examples, interprets, predicts, rewrites, and summarizes.
Okay. Babasadahan lang natin itong Bloom's taxonomy since nung second year kita ay na-discuss na naman natin, na-discuss na sa atin ito, isa-isa. Sa assessment in learning 1, and ngayon ay nakakasalumuhan na naman natin sa assessment learning 2. Yan. The third one, sa Bloom's taxonomy ay ang applying. Miss Kyra, kindly read.
Applying. Use concept in new situation. Applies what has been learned in new situations. Applies, change, computes, operates, constructs, modifies, uses, manipulates, prefers, shows, and so on.
Next, Miss Solo.
Analyzing. Distinguishes between facts and inferences. Breakdowns, compares, contrasts, diagrams, differentiates, discriminates, identifies, infers, outline, relates, selects, and separates.
Next one, Miss Park.
Valuing, make judgments about the value of ideas or materials.
And the keywords.
Appraises, compares, criticizes, defends, describes, discriminates, evaluates, interprets, justifies, summarizes.
And lastly, Miss Peregrine.
Creating, build a structure or pattern from various elements. Put parts together to create a whole to make new meaning and structure. Composes, compiles, designs, generates, modifies, organizes, rearranges, reorganizes, revises, rewrites, summarizes, and creates.
Okay. Kapag magsusulat tayo ng ating intended learning outcomes or ng ating objectives is dapat mas dine-develop natin yung sa higher order thinking skills at konti lamang dito sa lower order thinking skills. different levels of knowledge. The first one is the factual knowledge. It is the idea, specific data, or information. Katulad na halimbawa ay H2O. Yan. Nandun agad yung kaalaman ng estudyante na ang H2O ay merong dalawang hydrogen and isang oxygen. Base dun sa kanyang chemical formula na kapag tinignan ay alam agad ng bata kung ilan yung hydrogen and oxygen. The next one is the conceptual knowledge. Words or ideas known by common name, common features, multiple specific examples which may either be concrete or abstract. Concepts are facts that interrelate with each other to function together. Halimbawa nito ay yung sa photosynthesis.
Yung araw na lang gamitin.
Pangatlo, we have procedural knowledge. This is how things work, step-by-step actions, methods of inquiry. For example, is knowing how to conduct an experiment to measure the rate of chemical reactions. At naka-include doon yung specific steps, mga safety measurements, tsaka yung mga equipment na kailangan. The last one is the metacognitive knowledge. This knowledge of cognition in general, awareness of knowledge of one's own cognition, thinking about thinking. For example, recognizing when you need to seek additional information or adjust your approach when conducting a scientific investigation. And our ILO, or the intended learning outcomes, should be written in a smart way. Ano nga yung smart?
Specific, measurable, attainable, result-oriented, time-bound.
And our subject matter, or the content, comes from a body of knowledge, facts, concept, procedure, and metacognition that will be learned through the guidance of the teacher. Sa madaling salita, ang subject matter ay tatandaan nyo lang is, it is what to teach. Yan. Tandaan nyo lang, ang subject matter is what to teach. What in teaching. Na, syempre, naka-include din dito yung mga references. The next one, the procedure or methods and strategies. This is the crux of curriculum implementation. Kung dun sa una is what to teach, dito naman ay how to teach. Yan yung mga strategies ng teacher on how she or he will put to life the intended learning outcomes. According to Corpus and Salandanan 2013, enumerated the following approach. He enumerated the following approaches and methods which may be useful for different kinds of learners. Some are time-tested methods, while others are non-conventional constructivist methods. So let's take a closer view. How will you as a teacher arrange the teaching learning situation which will engage students to learn? Okay. And here are some points to remember. Since we have different kinds of learners. First, we have direct demonstration methods. These are guided exploratory or method, problem-based learning, or the PBL, and the project method. Dito sa una is, yung teaching technique ng teacher is, pakita niya directly sa kanyang mga bata kung paano gagawin ang isang bagay. Halimbawa ay, kunwari, sa ibang example naman ay, yung tamang paghiwa ng gulay or prutas, ganyan. Napakita mo sa mga learners directly. The next one is the cooperative learning approaches. This includes peer tutoring, learning action cells, and think, pair, and share. This is where students work together in a small group to achieve a common goal, encourage collaboration and active participation among the group. Next, we have deductive or inductive approaches. This is project method, inquiry-based learning. When we say deductive, it starts with general to specific. Halimbawa ay yung kalaman natin na all living things requires water to survive. So halimbawa yung na-obserbahan ka na new species, ganyan. Ay ayon sa iyong kalaman, itong specific, itong species na ito ay kailangan din ng water, or it requires water to be able to survive. And when we say inductive naman, it starts with specific to general. Kabaliktaran siya ng deductive approach. Halimbawa dito ay nag-observe ka muna or nag-collect ka muna ng mga data. Then, use them to form a general theory or principle. Halimbawa ay may ina-obserbahan ka na isang species, katulad ng kanina, ina-obserbahan mo na yung species. So, baliktarin lang natin. Kapag yung na-obserbahan yung species ay kailangan ng water to be able to survive, so, i-generalize mo na siya na lahat ng species ay kailangan ng water to be able to survive. And the other approaches are the blended learning and reflective teaching, integrated learning outcome-based approach. Dito ay sa blended learning yung traditional classroom instruction with online learning activities. Yun yung combination ng face-to-face or in-person lectures or hands-on experiment. Then, mag-provide ka rin ng mga online resources, katulad ng mga video tutorials. And teachers must take into consideration that the different strategies should match with the learning styles of the students. And for the continuation, I will give the platform to Miss Solas.
So, good morning po ulit. Before we proceed our discussion, is magkakaroon tayo ng palaro. So, may friend po kami mamaya after. Cake coffee po. Coffee pala. So, this game was entitled Jastine. So, hulaan nyo. So these are, as a hint, ito yung mga different types of learners. So who wants to answer this first picture or graphics? Miss Soto.
Kinesthetic learners.
Let's check if your answers are correct. Yes, kinesthetic learners. So we have next here. What type of learner is this? Miss Grimaldo. Yes, correct. It is a visual learners. So, sagot naman yung ginisahan sa kabila. Siya, ano, bago. So, the next graphics wants to answer. Miss, Patinyo.
Auditory.
Please stand up.
Yay!
Auditory learners.
So, yeah, tama. Your answers are all correct. So meron na kayong idea on what I am going to, what is my part of this report. It is all about the multi-intelligence. So, students have different learning styles. Yun yung nabanggit nyo, which are the kinesthetic, auditory, and the visual learners. These are many classifications of learning styles according to the different authors, which is the multiple intelligence theory by Howard Gardner, which implies several learning styles. But for our lesson, yung mga naging hinulaan nyo kanina yung ipa-focus natin within this lesson, which are the visual, auditory, and the kinesthetic. So these three preferred styles can help teacher choose the methods and the material they will use. So these are the common characteristics, yung mga nabanggit nyo kanina. Parang idadaanan na lang natin kasi natakan na naman natin ito this past few years natin in this goal. So the visual learners uses graphs, charts, pictures, tends to remember things that are written form. So on the word itself, visual learners, sila yung natututo through visualizations. Yung estudyante sila natututo kapag mayroong pictures, graphics na pinakita si teacher. Next is the auditory learners, which recalls information through hearing and speaking, and prefers to be told how to do things orally and learns aloud. Ito naman yung mga katulad nyo. For example, nagsasalita si teacher dito sa una, tapos kayo nakikinig, and some of the students are natututo through hearing the teacher or hearing the lesson was all about. Next is the kinesthetic learners, which prefers hands-on approach, demonstrates how to do, rather than explain, and likes group work with hands-on minds. So ito naman yung mga learners na tututo through doing by John Dewey, the learning by doing. So dito, for example, mas gusto ko yung meron tayong hands-on approach or mga laboratory activities kapag sa ating lesson, kasi parang para sa akin, based on my experience, kapag nagawa ko yung isang bagay is parang mas naiintindihan ko kung ano yung point or kung ano yung pinapadating sa atin ng isang or ng any lessons. So these are the tips for teachers about learners. Ito naman yung point of view ng excuse me po. So these are, ito yung point of view ng mga learners. Number one is auditory learners. Record lecturers and listen to this. Repeat materials out loud or parrots and it's reading aloud. For example, ako as a auditory learner, natututo ako kapag, for example, nagre-review ako. Kapag binabasa ko ng malakas yung nire-review ko, is mas natatanda ko yung nire-review ko. Also, kapag ito yung parrots, ibig sabihin, yung, di ba yung parrots nagmimimik ng sounds pa ulit-ulit. So, kapag pinaulit-ulit natin yung words, mas natatandaan ng utak natin. So, the visual learners are, the point of views of the visual learners, turn notes into pictures, diagrams, maps, learn the big picture, first the details, and make mind maps and concept maps. So ito naman, as a visual learner, sila yung, kapag binigyan ko nila ng picture ng mga words, mas prefer nila matuto based on the picture. So gumagawa sila ng paraan. Kunyari, yung notes nila is mas nilalagyan nila ng pictures para kunyari, the past lessons, lumipas na yung panahon, pag binalikan nila, tapos hindi masyado nilang tandaan yung words na yon, is may pictures sila makikita, ay ganyan pala yan na pa-process. Ganon. Next is the kinesthetic learners. They learn something while doing another things. For example is, eats while studying, work while standing, like field work, do many things at one time. So, hindi ko na ipapakano ito. Ito yung mga learners na natututo kapag sila mismo yung gumagawa ng hands-on activities. So, we will be moving on to the teaching and learning in this mode of learning. So, before that, teaching and learning must be supported by instructional materials or the IMS. It considers the teaching methodologies and the learning style that the different support materials should be varied. This will ensure that the individual differences will be considered. So as a future teacher, dapat tayong teacher ay maging aware na hindi lahat ng estudyante ay natututo based on visualization, based on auditory, or based on kinesthetic. So dapat lahat ng yun is na-adapt natin siya. For our future teachings, dapat alam natin na may pagkakaiba-iba kung paano tututo yung ating mga estudyante. And that will ensure that, syempre, kapag na natin yun is matututo sila. Instructional materials should complement the visual, auditory, and tactile, or the combination of the three. However, following Dale's cone of learning, which is visual device, can help the teachers to make decisions on what resources and materials will maximize the learning. So ito na nga yung sinasabi ko, the cone of learning. Wow. So this cone of learning ay ito yung after 2 weeks is natatandaan ng mga bata. So ano nga ba yung passive at active learning method? So sino po yung gustong mag-differentiate of the two, yung based on your knowledge lang? Miss Peregrine.
Para sa akin ay para sa akin ay mas natututo yung sa active learning ay mas natututo yung estudyante kapag siya mismo yung gumagawa o siya mismo yung nagiging active agent ng kanyang pagkatuto. Samantalang yung passive learning naman ay matututo din siya naman, pero based on sa nababasa at naririnig lamang niya without doing anything.
Okay, thank you. Tama naman yung sinabi niya. And so meron ka lang idea about this. So I explained ko yung passive and active learning. So sa nabanggit ni Miss Peregrine, yung sa active learning is mas natututo yung mga bata kapag sila ay engaged doon sa ginagawa. While yung passive learning is kapag natututo sila, less natututo sila kapag nakikinig or nanonood lang sila sa isang bagay. So nakita nyo dito, yung under ng ng passive, sakop ng passive is reading, hearing words, singing, and watching a movie, looking at an exhibit, watching a demonstration. Di ba wala silang engagement? Walang engagement yung student sa doon sa kapag nagtuturo or sa isang classroom or sa isang lesson na ginagawa. So kung makikita nyo dito, ang mga lang is e-learning modules, adaptive pre-assessments, mobile learning, instructor-led training, and the TA support. So kung makikita nyo dito, narito yung percentage on how the students learn. So dun sa una, 10% of what we read. Hindi naman siguro lahat sa atin is kapag nabasa nyo ngayon, nang walang kaunawaan, diba? Kapag nabasa nyo ngayon, syempre, hindi lahat naman tanda nung binasa niya kahapon. Agree ba kayo? Yes! Yun. So, dito naman is on what we hear kapag nakikinig lang yung bata, walang ginagawang engagement. Kapag nasa bangko lang yung mga learners is 20% lang sila natututo. And on what they see, kapag pinanood lang natin siya ng mga movies or pictures, pinakita natin sila ng picture, 30% lang sila na tututo, and the 50% of what they are learned is on how they see and hear. Kapag nanood sila ng movie, hindi sila umaabot sila sa 50%, pero hindi sila totally natututo doon sa isang lesson na yun. So kung makikita nyo dito is 70% of what the students say is mas nagkakaroon silang tuto, di ba? Mas mataas dun sa 50%. Ibig sabihin, nagkakaroon ng natututo yung mga bata mismo kapag pinagsagot nyo sila, pina-engage nyo sila sa klase, and nakisabay sila sa yung sa agos ng klase, pagos. And last is 90% of what the students do, they learn. So yung lagi niyong tatandaan na pag nagturo na kayo, si Ben, kapag nagturo na kayo, for example, is hindi dapat natin intindihin yung oras. Hindi natin intindihin yung oras kasi dapat aware tayo na ang mas pinofocus natin is kung paano matuto yung mga bata. Kaya i-engage natin sila sa mga activities dapat meron tayong engagement or mga palaro kapag tayo ay nagkaklase na. So madali na lang ito, be patient na lang. So here are some guidelines so for the students to learn more. So ito yung use of direct purposeful experience through learning. So kapag habang nagkaklase kayo is magkaroon kayo ng reflection sa life niya or reflection sa mga bata or para mas maunawaan nyo na ay dito pala nagawa ko na pala yung part ng learning na yun. Next is participation in class activities. Dapat ay hindi natin minimize na magkaroon ng participation yung mga learners natin within the classroom. And also the passive participation. Dito, in-explain na lang yung percentage kanina. So, kung makikita nyo is nandiyan na nakalagay. 30% by, just looking the pictures, 20% for hearing or the sermon. And 10% if the learners just read the materials. So, what are the methods and materials that must implement the plan, taking it into action? So, for example, nag-discuss ako dito sa una. Siyempre, hindi dapat natin baliwalain yung mga nalaman natin within today. Dapat, for our future teachings is ma-adapt natin kung ano yung mga napag-aralan natin through these years. So, dapat na tayo sa lesson planning and science. So, hindi ko na ito papaka-focus kasi ito naman is parang guide lang as a lesson plan for our teachers as a science. For our science.
Remaining 5 minutes for your topic.
So, hindi na natin ito papaka-focus kasi ito ay this is just a guide for in our lesson planning. So, makikita nyo, meron ditong objectives or the intended learning outcomes or the ILO. The second is we have the subject matter. The third is we have the procedures for the laboratories. Siyempre, meron tayo ditong laboratory, and post-laboratory activities. So yan, may conceptualization after the post-laboratory activities. And the so meron tayong assessment of learning na dapat is masagot within the time frame of your lesson. Ito yung practice lang after the lesson, which is 1 to 5. For example, ito 1 to 5 lang. Hindi yung magpapakus kayo is after the lesson is doon na kayo sa oras. Tapos yung quiz nyo pa ay hanggang 1 to 20. Tapos ito is assignment para ma-ensure natin na yung learners natin ay natuto kapag umalis na dito sila sa school. And pagbalik is paano natin ito i-review para sa kanila. So as for our conclusion, the daily implementation of a well-structured curriculum in the classroom is a cornerstone of effective education. It provides teachers with a clear roadmap to guide their students toward acquiring knowledge and skills. So we must be aware that a carefully designed curriculum not only sets specific learning objectives but also for adaptability and creativity in teaching methods. By consistently following the curriculum, educators ensure that each day in the classroom contributes to broader educational goals. Moreover, it empowers teachers to measure their progress and make necessary adjustments, ultimately leading to meaningful and impactful learning experiences for students. The daily commitment to curriculum implementation is not merely just a routine. It is a commitment to nurturing the minds and potential of the next generation, fostering a brighter future for all. So, as a quote of the day, before we end our discussion, we think too much about effective methods of teaching and not enough about effective methods of learning. So dapat mag-focus tayo on kung paano maging effective yung methods na magagamit natin, hindi yung kung gaano ka-effective yun. Dapat syempre ma-measure natin kung effective ba talaga siya within our lessons or teaching. So that is all I hope you learned with our report, and thank